Hey, it's Carlo Prusa, and today I am joined with Mr. Dean Toole. Dean, you do pretty much everything. You're a matchmaker, you're an owner, you act as a president, you play a big part in Game Bred Boxing, Island Fights, IKON FC. Do you believe in sleep?
When I can, but I prefer not to. So,
So IKON FC6 just around the corner here in Orlando, December 2nd. You guys just announced it a couple weeks ago. This card is absolutely stacked. And one thing that I got from it right away was the experience on this card. You have guys who have fought in the UFC. You have guys who have fought in the entire series, guys who have fought in PFL. What all went into putting this card together?
um, pretty much just kind of letting me do my thing, and I think that's what I like to do. We try to get the best people possible. This is our last show of the year, so we really wanted to go out with a bang. And we really wanted to showcase, back when Island Fights was on UFC Fight Pass, we kind of had our mission statement was every fight on our main card should be the main event and would be the main event on any other promoter's card in the country. So even some of the debut fights on this card, guys like Reggie Northrup, even as a pro debut, would probably main event other regional events, even making his pro debut. Guys like Musa, who's a national champion boxer from Penn State, Bo Nichols' teammate, also could be headlining on any other card. And then Anthony Cassar, who is the Division One national champion heavyweight, Bo Nichols teammate, making his pro debut, would definitely be a main event on any other card in the country. So the fact that those guys are at the bottom of this card says a lot. So
You guys have mentioned that Solomon Renfro is going to be making his return. He's going to be in the main event. Are you guys close on announcing an opponent for him? And
he is
what are you looking for
he
him for the
fractured his
fight?
wrist. He
Oh, is he
fractured.
out?
Yeah, typically that would be a super nightmare, but the card is absolutely insane. There are some other fights that we did add to the card. Um, like one of the fights we're leading off of, which is the first fight of the night on the undercard, is Micah Miller coming back. He's I think 20-9. He hasn't fought in a couple of years, but he's fighting the veteran Steven Seiler, UFC vet, PFL vet, I believe. Um, he fought for us when we helped do the Showtime FC card last year. I think he fought Bubba Scheffel, who was an Orlando native, and it went to a decision. It was a super tough fight. Bubba's a local who's like 6-0, 7-0, something like that. So that's a tough fight, and that's what's leading our card to open before the main card. So our headliner, Adriano Rodriguez, 18-6 versus Jared Gooden, 20-9. So
Now, one of the fights that I'm most looking forward to on this card is Christian Lawson and Nate Williams. It's a very evenly styled match. They're both very good on the ground. Was the idea behind this one to put two great ground specialists together and see what happens?
yeah, well, Christian's not easy to match. Christian's been fighting for us for a while. He fought for us before he went to the Dana White Contender Series, and his grappling is some of the most exciting grappling I've ever seen. He's going for everything: spladles, banana splits, twisters, omoplata, you name it. Like, he's attacking and always trying to finish the fight. He's not a guy who's just going to take you down and lay on you or anything of that nature. He ended up getting into the PFL. He had a freak accident injury where he was grappling and actually lost a testicle. But he's so fun to watch. When he fought for us for Island Fights, I think he was number fourth ranked submission of the year in 2019, I believe. So he's super fun to watch, and he's fought for us a few times since then, and then made it to the PFL, and now he's kind of trying to make his way back to the UFC. When he fought on the Contender, he fought the Bosnian Strangler. I forget his name, but he was Khabib, one of Khabib's training partners, and Gianni the Greek bet against him and said that he was going to get subbed and all these different things. I'm like, man, this guy's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whose parents are both black belt world champions in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and all three of them are under Cesar Gracie. So, like, this kid trains with Rodolfo Vieira, trains with Jacare, trains at Fusion XL with some of the best grapplers in the entire world. So I knew his jiu-jitsu was there. He went for a submission. I think it might have been a Darce or something, and burned his arms out pretty bad and was just super gassed for the rest of the fight. But I think he would have won that night. I think this is a great opportunity for him. Nate is super tough, also a great grappler. So I think that this fight is stylistically going to be super fun to watch. And Nate's never fought for us yet. I've obviously watched him fight a bunch of times. We've been trying to put him on the card for a while now. But a lot of people don't want to fight Nate, and a lot of people don't want to fight Lozon. So they get to fight each other, and I think it turned into something cool that we all get to witness.
Now, you mentioned the main event is now going to be Jared Gooden and Adriano Rodriguez. Between the two guys, 52 pro fights. Where do you think the experience is going to come in here?
Well, Adriano I think he's been involved in Thiago Santos's last 4 camps. So, I mean, this guy's super experienced. I think he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he likes to bang. So, super fun to watch. Remember, Jared is 27 years old, something crazy. Like, he has that amount of fights, and he's one of the youngest people. It's insane how young he is. So he still has a lot of room for growth, and I think that's the cool thing about Jared. Typically, we wouldn't be getting like UFC veterans. It's kind of not our thing. Our thing is like, we got these young fighters. Let's see if we can groom them, mold them, get them to the UFC. And then, but a guy like Jared is still so young. I think he has so much room to grow, but it's so hard for him or a guy like Adriano to get fights outside of the UFC, because who in the world at 185, let's just say you're 6-0 prospect, you're not fighting Adriano Rodriguez. Not in a million years. You don't even need to, because you'll probably get in without doing that. So the only fights you're going to get typically with those type of records are like 500 record guys or older guys, maybe 38 years old to 43 that are still competing. So this was a fight that made sense for both guys, record-wise, everything. So I can't wait to watch that one. That's one of the fights I'm most excited to watch for sure.
Do you think having guys like that on the card who have had a lot of fights and have had the experience act as a benefit for some of the younger guys? You know, maybe they can act as role models for the younger guys to see, you know, how these more seasoned guys handle themselves and conduct themselves.
Jorge Masvidal. Let's see. Yeah, I think so. I think when you can show that you're poised and calm and collected, and you know, before the fight, during the fight, just there's so many different things you could learn from guys like that. They've been there, they've seen it all. They've fought in front of huge crowds, they've fought in front of small crowds, they've done everything. So even just to watch a guy like that warming up in the back and preparing, or just mentally getting his mind right, is good for all the young up and comers. There's a lot of guys. There's 6 people on this card making their professional debut. So I think it's a really, really good card to get to do that also.
You know, I was talking about professional debuts. Anthony Cesar, huge prospect. As a promoter and a matchmaker, what does it feel like when you're able to land a guy like that on one of your cards?
Awesome. I mean, we kind of did this with Bo. You know, Bo fought for my promotion that I own, Island Fights. He fought 2 amateur fights there, and then he made his pro debut on IKON. So it's good. It's good to have a great relationship with all the different managers in the sport, you know. And then the better the relationships, the better opportunities you end up having when you're building up fight cards. So there's been a lot of those opportunities. You know, we've had Bellamere make her debut on IKON back when she was 17 when we did it in Mexico. Bo Nickel. I mean, there's a lot of really cool situations, but I think the Bo Nickel, the whole Penn State stuff is super exciting, not only for us, but all the diehard wrestling fans out there. But I think, you know, these are the next wave of mixed martial artists. These guys have been training boxing, they've been training jiu-jitsu, everything besides just wrestling, and they're ready to show the world. It's not just, hey, I'm not just going to take you down. Like, we're MMA fighters completely. So
Do you think he's looking to go out there and make a big statement in his first fight?
for sure. I mean, he was going to do a couple amateur fights, you know, but matching Anthony Cassar is not the easiest thing in the world. And that's what's so crazy about this. It's almost not even fair to match him in an amateur fight. That's like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion making his amateur debut. Who do you match him with? You know, you're kind of stuck in a hard place, a rock in a hard place there, because even the Bo Nickel thing, oh, we match him with someone and he destroys them. Oh, they matched him with a tomato can, whatever, you know. So it's like they slowly kept fighting him. The guy that Bo Nickel just fought, Donovan Beard, is no tomato can. He's an absolute savage. He'll beat most of the guys in the whole country. You know, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He finishes wrestlers off of his back all of the time. So, you know, that guy was a CFFC 185-pound champion, and Bo Nickel made quick work of that. And Donovan Beard is a savage. He is like a really, really highly touted prospect in the United States, all over the world, and he made quick work of that. So Anthony Cassar's debut, it's complicated. You don't give the guy a 5-0 guy for his debut. It's not fair. He's never even had an amateur fight. So those are the kind of the things that make it tough as a matchmaker, is trying to figure out, okay, who are we going to match him with first? You know, you got to think about, this guy's never had an amateur fight. He's never had a pro fight. And then you also have to think about the fans and the crowd and the people watching at home. Like, you don't want to disappoint people, but at the same time, it's like, you know, who do you match these guys up with? And number two, who wants to fight Anthony Cassar in the first place? You know, so damned if you damned if you do, damned if you don't. But it should be great either way. So.
In addition to Anthony, former FSU standout Reggie Northup also making his pro debut on the card. How do you expect the Florida crowd to react to him?
Oh, great. I mean, another guy who's fought for us for Island Fights, fought for us for Gamebred FC. And I think I don't know if Reggie fought for us for IKON or maybe an undercard on IKON. No, this is his pro debut, so he hasn't fought for IKON yet, but he fought for Gamebred FC. Our other promotion, it's a bare knuckle MMA promotion, but he fought on the undercard with gloves. And he fought for Island Fights. So another situation where, like, everybody in the world wants to watch Reggie Northrop's debut. This guy is one of the most athletic people I've ever seen enter a cage or a ring. You would think that he would just be a guy who's just this brute strength linebacker guy from FSU, but this guy can strike. This guy can throw kicks. This guy can throw wheel kicks, everything. Like, he has it all. So I think a lot of people are going to be super excited to watch Reggie. And the fact that he's fighting at 205 when he was a big, bulky linebacker in college, it says a lot too. He's super in shape, super lean. The last time he fought, actually, in Biloxi, Mississippi, it was fight day. And I went to the gym to work out, and he's in there working out on fight day. Never heard of anything like this in my entire life. It was the craziest thing. And he goes out there and knock out first round. So.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago, Jorge Masvidal was trying to call you. How exactly did you start how did you get to know him, and how did you start doing business with Jorge?
Yeah, well, his manager was a good friend of mine. Still to this day, great friends. His manager, Abraham Cow, would come to our events for Island Fights and kind of scout out new talent, situations like that. And then one time he came, they had a fighter fighting, Ignacio Bahamondes, who's in the UFC now, who's doing great, young striker from Chile. And he turned pro at 17. Yoel Romero came, Jorge Masvidal came, and Abe, and they all came. We had like the best time. They all hung out all weekend, but we kind of started our friendship and relationship back then. And then maybe a year, 2 years later, we did a big grappling event, and I had Yoel Romero grapple Chris Barnett. I had Anthony Pettis grapple Masvidal. I had like Supreme Patty made his amateur boxing debut. Like a few influencers fought. It was like an amateur event plus grappling thing, and it was all for charity. And they all showed up. It was a cool event. Still continue to stay in touch. And then just developed a relationship over the years, back and forth to Miami. I'd see him at their offices, you know, Malky and Abe. We'd all be at the same office, hang out, go out, whatever after that. And just relationship just kept forming and forming and forming from there.
Now, I've heard in the past Jorge Masvidal mentions each of the IKON fight cards in the themes. For example, the one in August, he called it the Young Guns card. Is there a theme associated with this one in December?
I don't know yet. I don't want to be put on the spot, but I will come up with something. But I'm sure it's going to be something like putting it all on the line, something like that. Because like this event is the event that could send a lot of people on this card potentially to the Dana White Contender Series or to the UFC. Like, this is the fight card. The cool thing about this card is there's like 6 fights on this card where one winner could either go to the contender or straight to the UFC. So those are the fights we're trying to book. And these 3 debut fights, these are the guys that are the future of our promotion. and until they get signed. So, we're excited about all of it.
What I really like about IKON FC is that it acts as a feeder league. It acts as a platform for guys to get to the bigger shows, the UFCs, the PFLs, the Bellators. How important do you think that is to do that to help, grow and evolve the sport of MMA?
Well, I tell everybody, look, if you fight for us, if you're not a debut guy, if you have a couple fights and you fight for us more than 3 times, then we're not doing our job. Then this platform is not working, right? Like a lot of promotions are doing title fights and all these type of things, and we want to do those eventually, but our guys are going quicker, so quick that we don't have time to put them in a title fight. So I think that says a lot about our organization, and it says a lot about our mission. Our mission, we're literally just the train that's taking them to the next stop, right? Hop on. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses, loses. You lose, you come back and you get back on the train and see if you can get there also. But we're just a platform. We're a provider of opportunity, and that is all that we do. We provide the opportunity. The guys win or they lose. They win. They go to the next stage in life, whether that's the UFC or the PFL or Bellator one, whatever that is. Like, that's our job. My job is for you to fight on our show and us to try and get you to the UFC first and foremost, So we've been doing a good job at that with Island Fights, Gamebred, FC, and Icon. I can't even tell you the number anymore. I don't even know the number anymore, but it's a ton of people. I think just Island Fights alone was, in the 30s, something like that. And that's just like Contender Series, PFL, and the UFC.
Do you take pride in knowing that you're helping these fighters get to the next level?
Of course, that's the only reason. That's the only reason I like to do it. It's like obviously making money and all that stuff's cool, but to give somebody a phone call or let them know, hey, someone might be calling you or your manager's about to call you, and the manager lets us know, hey, they're in. The manager always lets us call the fighter and let them know. So it's always pretty cool. It's nothing better than that phone call. Them making it to the pinnacle of the sport. Nothing makes me happier than that. The first time they make a little video jumping on their bed in their hotel room with their Reebok gear, now their Venom gear, and they're so excited. Like, I always remember these points, and then later on, it may change, but in the beginning, like, I remember that, I remember how happy they were to get that phone call. I remember, like, this is everything they ever worked for. These are the guys that might have needed help with a new transmission or a tire that went out on their car, and went from extreme lows, from financial hardships, to some of these guys making $100-something thousand in one fight due to a fight night bonus, and their whole entire life changed overnight. It's cool to watch the transition and see it all play out.
Were you the one to tell guys like SD Dumas, Bo Nickel, or Hamby that they're going to the UFC?
I didn't tell Hamdi. I don't remember the Bo Nickel thing. Maybe I think me and Malky had a call with Bo. Just we were gonna do a show up there. Malky had an idea of doing an event with Cale Sanderson in the Penn State Arena. So we were gonna do an event with Bo. Up there, a bunch of the Penn State guys were gonna fight. It was just an amateur show. Something ended up happening. We kind of ran into some problems, and they wanted to do the show like in the summertime, which kind of defeated the purpose because we're trying to sell the tickets to the people that go to Penn State, but they're all gone for summer. So it kind of didn't make any sense. We're like, hey, we're doing a fight in Virginia. Why don't you just make your pro debut and hop on that? So we had this long call, me, him, and Malky, and that was the route that he chose to do, But I don't remember who called him. Maybe I'm pretty sure it's probably Malky that called him and told him that he was going to fight on the Contender. So that Hamdi, I think his manager called him, and then Dumas. Do you remember it was Dumas? Contender Series?
You got the call about Contender, and then we were there.
Yeah. I think we told him about Contender Series, but we were there live when he fought for the Contender, so that was cool. Guys like Brock Weaver, Jacob Kilburn. There's been so many, but I've made that call tons of times. So nothing's better than that.
You've been around the sport for a long time now. The sport right now, MMA, the money's in as better as it ever has been as right now. There's multiple different leagues. There's so many different platforms. It's culturally accepted. It's on major sporting networks. For you personally, what do you think has led to the involvement and growth of this sport?
I mean, the best part about this sport is the best people fight the best people, right? That's the UFC's model. There are times I think they could build people a little more strategically, right? Matching them strategically with certain people. Sometimes they let the best people fight each other a little too early. But I think, like, once you're in the top 10, top 15, like, you got to fight the best guys in the world. And that's why whatever the cream is that continues to rise to the top becomes a star eventually, and there's always new stars. And it's the reason it's like that is because these guys are fighting the best guys in the world, guys and girls, all the time. And it's not that you can't say that about boxing. There's too many people that become their own promoters. And then there's so many leagues. It's like you got to have all these different belts and sanctioning bodies because there's, you got a champion every 4 pounds or 6 pounds. It depends on the weights when they're jumping up, but they have to do that because there's way too many people. So like if Canelo is under Golden Boy and Gervonta Davis is under Mayweather, just I know they're not in the same weight class, but just as an example, they're never going to fight each other ever, and that sucks for boxing. Then Canelo Alvarez, who's under Golden Boy, starts Canelo Alvarez Promotions. And then Gervonta Davis, who's under Mayweather Promotions, starts Gervonta Davis Promotions. So now you got 2 other guys under 2 other guys, De La Hoya and Mayweather. Now there's 4 different promoters from 4 fights. And then they just A-side it the whole time, strategically matching their guys. Even Triple G, like all the people, Triple G would fight guys that are 20-1 with 2 KOs on his record. He's susceptible to being punched. So he'll fight a guy who doesn't have big punching power, but a really, really good record. So strategically, they're matching people the right way. Mayweather was matched with people that walk forward while he can be a counter puncher. So it just sucks when you let. I can't say it's the athlete controlling it, but it just sucks that there's no big leagues in boxing because everyone would be getting paid, and the real best fighters in the world, everybody would actually know who that is. And in MMA, you know who that is. Back in the day with Pride FC, they fought each other in the tournament at the end of the year every year. I don't know. It's just cool. And I think that's why people enjoy watching MMA.
You just talked about the matchmaking aspect of it. For you guys, you have an interesting matchmaking philosophy. You guys look to stack the cards, put one guy in the red corner, one guy in the blue corner that are very even, who even have the same skill set to make the most exciting fights. What is the reason for doing this?
My reasoning for that is like I tell everybody, like my mom can go in there and fight for us, and whoever wins the fight, I stand up and clap the same way. Like there's no anything to it. I don't care who wins or loses, I wish the best for everybody. And when you're matching fights, it has to be that way. Some of my close friends are managers, super close friends, and they have a guy, someone might be like, oh, well, that guy's fighting because he's friends with Dean, and this guy's fighting because he's friends with Dean. But those guys might lose. They're losing because they're all fighting the toughest fights. So there's no favoritism when it comes to that. Like we're putting on the best fights, and that's it. Whoever wins that night wins that night. We congratulate whoever wins. I remember specifically a huge ticket seller in Savannah. Everybody in the building's there to see this guy, and he ends up getting knocked out. And Masvidal stands up clapping. And I'm like, oh man, there's like 1,000 people here that are in a really bad mood, But that's, you got to be neutral. You got to be happy for anybody who wins the fight, and you got to be happy for the other guy that got in there and fought his ass off. Period. So that's where we're at. We try to put the best fights on. Period. The best guys or girls in the world, and whoever wins wins. We're happy for that person no matter what.
Now, since the announcement of IKON FC6, how's the reaction been from the public? Are you expecting a big crowd for this one?
Well, here's our issue. Our issue was we were about 8 or 9 weeks out trying to do this event. we could not get a venue to save our life. We probably spent 4 weeks trying to get a venue, to the point where we almost canceled the show and said we can't do it. It's just not possible. Originally, IKON was on November 18th in Biloxi. They asked if we could do December 2nd. You know, it was the night before UFC Orlando. It's cool because so many people are going to be in Orlando for the UFC fight, so it would probably take a lot of that crowd. But we could not get a venue, so we went on sale last week. Fight cards done, so this is a very, very short turnaround to try and pack the house in a huge venue like this. But I think we'll do a pretty good job.
Now, looking back at the fights on December 2nd, if you had to pick fight of the night, where would you put your money right now?
Timothy Kawamba, Alexander Schenk, 1,000,000,000%. You know, Kawamba's one of the best up and coming guys I've seen, and so is Alexander Schenk. Alexander Schenk had a super close fight with Amun Cosme when we had our fight in West Palm Beach. So he's 4-1 because of that super close fight, and I think Amun Cosme is one of the best fighters in the country, you know, if not the world. So Schenk was also our Island Fights featherweight champion as an amateur. The guy's so fun to watch, flying knees, spinning everything, kicks, wrestling is phenomenal. The guy's so fun to watch. And the same thing with Kawamba. He trains with Dewey Cooper. He's coming out of Vegas. He had a great fight when we did the Freedom Fight Night card in Miami. So we're so happy to have him back on the card. And the fact that those two guys are fighting each other, insane. So that fight right there. Also, the Bekzad Usmanov and Anvar. Anvar fought on the Contender, but he fought up in weight. I think he fought in a weight class he wasn't supposed to be in. This guy's got he's like 127 and 24 in pro kickboxing, glory kickboxer. That fight's gonna be nuts, you know. And Bekzad can do it all. He had like, I forget what he said, 20 or 30 kickboxing matches in China or somewhere when he was living for a little while in the span of like a year and a half. So he was fighting like constantly. So that's a fight that I'm super excited to watch also, you know. And then Joe Pennefield, Dennis Palenkika, 9-0 versus 9-3. Like, this card is absolutely just insane, you know. And then you got Shimon Smatrisky, Israeli fighter. He's 8-2. He's only 22 years old, and he's already fought on the Contender twice. They said he was super close to getting signed even after a loss on the Contender. So this kid's 22 years old. He's already 8-2. His 2 losses were both on the Contender, and he's fighting Charlie Deca. He's 4-1, grinder, big puncher. He's fought for us on Game Bread, and he fought for us on IKON, like the very first IKON we ever had, right pre-pandemic, I believe. So I don't know. I'm excited to watch that fight too. Like, the whole card is phenomenal, and I don't know which fight's going to be the best. I'm going with Kawamba and Schenk. Definitely could be Adriano Rodriguez and Jared Gooden. I don't see either of those guys ever shooting a takedown in their entire life. So you never know, but I think those are the ones for sure.
All right, last question for you, Dean. Why should people tune in? Why should people buy tickets on December 2nd?
You should buy tickets because if you are a fight fan, then this is the fight you want to watch. Every single fight on the card. You'll never, ever get a card like this ever on the regional scene. You probably wouldn't even get one on a big, huge undercard for most big-time promotions. Like, this is a fight card. You don't get 18-6 guys versus 20-9 guys on regional shows. We're in a beautiful venue at the Silver Spurs Arena. Seats like 10,000 people. Jorge Masvidal is going to be there. The whole entire, everybody from Jacare, Machida, Rodolfo Vieira, like the whole Fusion XL family, Hannah Goldie, Alex Nicholson, Mike Perry, Mike Davis, all of these different people that are in that gym, all are coming. Lucas Alexander, who just got signed by the UFC. All those people will be at the show. So that's another reason to come. And I'm sure a lot of the UFC people fighting the following night will be at our event as well. So I think it's just a great night of fights, and these fights are all evenly matched to the T. I don't know who's going to win any of them, and that's the beauty of the card.
Well, Dean, I appreciate your time. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you, man.